So most of us heard about DC's plan for an expanded streetcar network. There's also the proposed Columbia Pike Metro line that never came to be. Now that certainly wouldn't mean that the two ideas would be merged into one, right? Right?
Jen? Ha!
So let me give you a simplified history of the Arlington streetcar. It started in the mid-2000s where there was a plan for the Columbia Pike Ride initiative to finally get its just deserved beef up. The plan was to have an almost 5-mile line starting from the Pentagon City Mall, then use Columbia Pike throughout all of Arlington, and then deviate into the Skyline District, Plaza, whatever you call it, as its terminus. However, this idea ran into two major problems. The first problem was the NVTA, the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, wanted to use taxpayer money to fund this. However, the Virginia Supreme Court did not allow it because it was violating the Constitution, since it is not an elected body, the NVTA. Then the second most prominent issue is none other than County Board member Libby Garvey. Initially, she was quite hesitant in wanting to have the streetcar, and then upon learning more about it, she absolutely refused to have this idea go through. It has even gone into the point that she literally decided to support and endorse John Vistad, an independent, who is actually a Republican, into being another member of the Arlington Board Council. This is truly a top 10 Arlington anime betrayals of all time. Vistad did get elected into the Arlington Board, and this would ultimately kill the idea of the Arlington streetcar. And unfortunately, their concerns and rejection of the DC streetcar would actually be valid, as DC's streetcar is pending to be shut down March the 31st of 2026. However, to me, I don't feel like this idea of a streetcar in Arlington would backfire like DC's streetcar on the H Street corridor. Yeah, there wouldn't be any rights of way or grade separation from the streetcar to the cars that are running alongside it. And yes, this would ultimately further push back a lot of future plans for the long-awaited Columbia Pike Metro line, which actually is a much better idea, but there has been cases where a streetcar line or trolley line in the case of Philadelphia can run alongside a metro. And plus, the way that Columbia Pike has been redesigned in the past few years has gone a lot more transit friendly and less car built. Even the cars that are currently parked on the side of the road here have enough separation where the streetcar does not have to get stuck because a driver doesn't know how to park. There's enough space. Also, most importantly, this would have been a WMATA project as well, joining alongside the NVTA, which WMATA, in terms of their transit projects, have done a fairly good job at. And I'll even add Metroway to the list as well, because prior to the opening of the Potomac Yard station, it was a pretty good gap filler between the missing links of Crystal City, Pentagon City, and Braddock. Now, there is one partial cue of what the Arlington streetcar would have looked like. This bus stop right here has stood here for a very long time. It has elevated platforms, tactile strips, and a very bougie design. This was actually meant to be one of the stops for the streetcar that was never meant to be. Okay, well, to be fair, this was technically meant for buses, but you can definitely tell that there's a bit of influence with the streetcar in mind. So I guess this now does beg the question. Let's say everybody agrees that we can build a streetcar. What would we get? Would we get something like the HBLR or the DC streetcar? Well, I got good news for you because in this other timeline of January of 2026, we would still be in the middle of construction. Yes, this does sound like a cop-out answer, but the harsh reality is that trying to modernize Columbia Pike has been quite a daunting task. Even in this current timeline, it's taking 15 years for Columbia Pike to be modernized and less carpilled. To put that into perspective, I am 30 years old, so for literally half of my life, I have literally seen nothing but construction here on Columbia Pike. Thankfully, things are getting better now and there's less construction work, but on this new timeline, I'm aiming at these to be open 2027, 2028. Which reminds me of another light rail project that's currently happening right now. That's also scheduled to open up 2027, 2028. But I will say some other things is that because it is a well-modded project, I wouldn't think that it would be called the Columbia Pike Streetcar. I think that it would have actually been called the pink line, just like as a different color line, because also you have the purple line as well. But with the Arlington Streetcar being fully implemented in the new timeline, this actually would have raised a lot more calls to have more light rail projects going, especially with the DC streetcar. Probably we would have gotten that Benning Road extension, and the DC streetcar wouldn't actually have been closed at all, because that would have been a very bad look on Muriel Bowser's idea of closing it this year. So there's also that as well. I also think that there would have been more calls for the W&OD trail to be revived, but rather than the commuter plan that people were trying to organize, it would have been more like a light rail interurban, back to where it was, just more modernized. And certainly because it is a Virginia project, there would have definitely been a lot more calls to expand the light rail for HRT. So that means that there would have been a very good chance that the tide would have gotten an expansion of some form. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully this is a good way for me to test my current transit knowledge now that I've really have been slowly starting to boom up. So any questions, comments, concerns, do let me know in the comments below, because I'm definitely here to learn, especially with alt history, because this is the first time I've ever done something like this. Aside from that, till we meet again, peace out. Wait a minute, I'm just realizing I see tactile strips, elevated boarding, and some cues for infrastructure. Does that mean that Columbia Pike is doing... Oh no.
No. You know what? That's it. I'm done. I quit. I give up. I tried. I really tried.